it's a new year, right? It's kind of new something, a lot of new stuff. And it got me thinking just kind of what our direction was for the class. This really hasn't changed as far as we want to keep giving you the word and helping any way we can in life. Yes, we're here in class, but we also understand that this is life, right? There are things that come up that you may need help with that's not covered in the Bible, right? There's circumstances and situations that are just not anticipated or just outside of this big setting. So sometimes you may need some help or some guidance that's outside of this, and don't hesitate to ask. We're open. Our phones are always on, so if we don't respond, it's because we're asleep or something, but at least me, if I don't have your number, you're pretty much not going to.
I will respond to you when I wake up, but I will.
Yes.
No, I'm just referencing Evan. Every time Evan is sick, appreciate Evan. It's like 1:30 in the morning. I get a text that says, Michelle, I think I can't come in today because I'm sick.
Okay.
Evan, it's 1:30 in the morning. Okay.
It's better than midnight. I'm just saying. I at least
not
try.
better than midnight.
Yeah. I had a manager who would show up to work at 2 a.m, and he would sit down at his computer and just start firing off emails. Just da-da-da-da-da. He would get replies, please do not email me at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. I'm still asleep. I get here at 6. Yeah, he was there at 2 just firing off emails. Because these managers all have their phones on them because they're so important. But, anyways, that's a whole nother story. But he was actually one of my favorite managers. I learned a lot from the guy, but he was a workaholic. He was married and had 2 16-year-old daughters at the time, but he was there from 2 a.m. until about 4 or 5 p.m. every day. And I'm like, how? And other managers would ask him, how? Because I would sit right next to him, how are you still married? And he'd just smile and just keep working. I don't know.
Maybe he wasn't.
I'm sure his home life was great. It really, really works out well when you're not there very often. So just thinking about the new year, I started thinking about what makes a year better or worse. I've come into so many years now. What is 41? And most of the years that I start off, I really have high hopes, but in reality, I'm like, man, look back to last year. How many times you messed up and didn't do this, that, or the other? And that's just the way it goes. This year was one of the first that I had a positive outlook, and I had something to reinforce the positive outlook, and that was encouraging to me. But I started to think, well, what made that come about? And it got me to decisions, right? Decisions, but not just decisions. Decisions with perspective is what I would say. Because, let's say you're fresh out of high school. You got it all figured out, right? You got life figured. You know where you're going to college. You know what you're going to do after that. You know who you're going to marry, as far as who the person that will be. You have all these things, and then you start living life, right? And you get a little more perspective on some of the things the ideas you had, and how they aren't all what they cracked up to be. Just thinking about different jobs that people take. You don't know what a job is going to do. Let's say you want to make really good money. So you're like, I want to be an underwater welder. They make good money. They make really good money. And then you start thinking, wait, what do they do again? They go under the water for 8 hours in these tanks, and then they're welding. I mean, I'm sure they can't get much done. But think about all the prep they got to do before they go under there, and all the stuff they got to do to go up, and how that life. And then they're building oil tankers in the middle of the ocean type stuff. So they're gone forever. Is that money really worth all of that stuff? So, you start living a little life and start getting a little perspective. And it starts to change kind of how you see things. And I'm going to kind of work backwards in how this. I have it written one way, and then my brain is working another way. It got me to the verse in Joshua. Let's just turn there real quick. Joshua chapter 24. Chapter 24, verse 14. You'll know this verse. It's 14 and 15. Now therefore fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served on the other side of the flood and in Egypt, and serve ye the Lord. And if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land ye dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And that really got me to thinking, how many people say that and have no idea what they're talking about? Like they just kind of have no real clue on what it means to say what Joshua said. You start to look at Joshua's life and you realize he says at the end of his life. This isn't it's a charging thing for our family. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. This is a foundation on how we will have our house, or how I'm going to live my life. He said it at the end, but he lived it the whole way. That's not how, that is exactly how he chose to live his life. And it's proven. Let's turn to Exodus 17, verse 9. Gotta get there. And Moses said unto Joshua, choose us out men and go fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in my hand. Joshua led the troops again in the first battle, right? That Moses had to hold up his hands, and Aaron and wasn't his sister, they had to hold up his arms, and Joshua went out there and led the people. He was leading God's people in battle. That's the first time we talk about Joshua. Let's look in 24th and verse 13. Verse 13, and Moses rose up and his minister Joshua, and Moses went up into the mount of God. Joshua clearly says here is Moses' minister, right? So he's living for God every day, and every time we see him, that's how he's mentioned, and he's mentioned right as Moses was going to go up and get the commandments, where all the people were way down there doing whatever they were doing, dancing around, getting Aaron to build them that calf. That Joshua wasn't down there with him, and that he was up with Moses in the mountain. He wasn't up in the mountain, but he was up on the mountain with Moses. Let's go to Exodus 32:17. And when Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said unto Moses, there is a noise in the camp, right? So he heard the noise, he heard all that was happening, and told Moses. Again, he wasn't a part of any of that nonsense. That's not the way he chose to live his life. And then let's go to Numbers 14. Um, 14 and then 6, verse 6. And Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, which were of them that searched the land, rent their clothes. And they spake unto all the company of the children of Israel, saying, the land which ye pass through to search it is an exceeding good land. If the Lord delight in us, then he will bring us into this land and give it us, a land which floweth with milk and honey. Only rebel not ye against the Lord, neither fear ye the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Their defense is departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Fear them not. But all the congregation bade stone them with stones. And the glory of the Lord appeared in the tabernacle of the congregation before all the children of Israel. So Caleb and Joshua were the only two to see good. And when they said something about it, everybody wanted to stone and kill them. The other 10 were absolutely against it. They were like, no, there's no way we're going to win this. That's not even possible. And these two, they weren't even necessarily concerned about it. I feel like I'd be a little more concerned when you saw the reaction of everyone's, they're going to kill me because I said that God was in this. Like, we've been following God this whole time. That's how he's been living his life. And it just got me to the point of, like I said, perspective. His perspective was really simple. It was, I'm living for God, and that's the way I'm going to choose to see everything. Everybody else was pretty much wishy-washy. They just kind of went with the flow of the day. And, oh, we're mad at Moses today. Oh, we're going to be mad at Moses today. Oh, they're just kind of going with the flow with whatever. Joshua was someone who said, for real, in his life, he lived it. We're going to serve the Lord. And as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. No matter if the people are going to stone me, no matter if the people are going crazy, no matter what, this is what we're going to do. And not only did God spare him from dying in the wilderness like the rest of the Israelites, but then he got to lead Israel into the land of Egypt. Into the land of Israel. And through all those battles, he lived a pretty good life. And the only thing he did different than anyone else was he served the Lord. That was his focus. That was his perspective. It wasn't the world. It was God. And I implore you to look into 2023 from that same type of perspective. If that's something that you really want in your life, to live for the Lord, then make that decision and then look at everything else from that perspective. Get counsel when you need counsel. Ask pastor for anything, really. If you got silly decisions that you're like, I don't know if I should get a new car, that seems silly to me, go talk to somebody about it. Get perspective from people who know, who've been there. It's going to change a lot of your decisions because you haven't been through it all yet. And neither have we. So sometimes we have to go ask people, hey, what do you think about this? And sometimes I call a pastor with something that we're like, guaranteed he's going to say to do this, but we're just going to call him anyways. And we do, and he's like, yeah, don't do that. Do this. Okay. Like, there was one time he saved us tens of thousands of dollars because, well, we were going to get something done that we thought he would say, yes, they say do this, get it fixed, or do that. And he was like, nah, don't do that. That's silly. Do this. Okay. And now it still works. Everything still works great like it was. We could have got it fixed, but we would have been in debt. We would have been paying somebody else another bill. Like, that stuff's not fun. When everyone's like, yeah, we'll get you credit and you'll be fine. You just got to pay $20. It's just $20 a month. That $20 a month adds up every single time. It's never 20, by the way. It's always hundreds. But it's funny how the people who are trying to get you the loan or whatever is always like, oh, yeah, that you can, yeah, it's no problem. We were buying a vehicle once and the person was like, oh, you work at Boeing? You get lots of overtime. That should cover this. And I was like, okay, but at some point, you can't cover everything. Every time someone was like, oh, you can work overtime for this. Like, well, true, but I can't. I do know somebody who worked last year over 1,200 hours of overtime in the year and made a ton of money. Then I started doing the math in my head of how many hours a day he had to work. He had to be there for 12-hour days pretty much every day. And weekends, all weekends, Saturday, Sunday, most of the time. He was about 2 on, 1 off on average. But that's just nuts to me. Like, you're living there for real. And I just don't like those people enough to want to live there. But I also want to be with my family. I want to do things. And even when we didn't have a family and we were dating, I wanted to spend my time with her. Or when I didn't have, I would work a little bit, but I still wanted to live life a little. I don't want to have to live there so I can afford to do the things that that just seems so backwards to me. But there are a lot of people who are just content with that. That guy, he's totally fine. He thinks it's the greatest thing ever. More power to him, but he made a ton of money. I just don't think it's worth it. Yes. So as you go into this year and start to see what you want to do with your life, what you want to happen, you can't control a lot of things that are going to happen throughout the year, but you can control your thought life. You can control where your decisions come from. You can just control your own decisions. You have the power of choice. You just don't have the power of consequences. That's the hard thing. That's what life will hit you with every time. Well, I did everything right in this and I still failed miserably and I owe people from this. Like, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, welcome to life. That's why you need wise counsels. So that way you can get good perspective on a lot of the things that you may seem silly or may seem straightforward. Most people aren't going to say, oh, that's just dumb. You shouldn't even ask me that. They're going to say, that's a good question. That's something that you should pray. Pastor's great at, you should pray about that. I came to you so you would tell me on this thing what to do. When I was gonna apply for Boeing and different things, I had an elevator mechanic apprenticeship kind of thing showed up, and all I had to do was go take a test, and then I get on this list, and then I can get a job. Well, my brother-in-law is one, and he told me they make good money. Well, that sounds like a really good elevator mechanic. That can't be too difficult. The problem is that was a mission trip that I had said I would go on. It was the same time as that test. So I go to pastor, and he's like, "Yeah, you should pray about that." I know I need like a little more than that. Talk to my family, and my dad's like, "Yeah, mission trip, you can go to those anytime. That job, you need that job. You need that. That's a good job. You should not pass that up." But the more I prayed about it, and the more I really thought about it, I'm like, I've never been on a mission trip. I had never been on one. Like seemed so cool to me to be able to go and do something like that. And I'm like, I don't know what job's going to come out of this, but I guess I just won't do that. Well, from the time I said no and said yes to the trip, I got an interview at Boeing. And then while I was on the trip, I got the job at Boeing. I'm glad I went and asked counsel from different people and didn't just trust myself, because I didn't trust myself enough to make a good enough decision. I had not made great decisions up to that point, other than coming to this church. Like, that was about the only thing that I had going as far as good. But God allowed me through prayer and through counsels to get perspective and see that, what things matter the most, and ended up getting a job that I still have to this day. Who knows? Like I said, I don't know what that elevator thing I'm pretty sure it would have fallen through and I wouldn't have got anything, and I would have been dead in the water. That's what I feel like would have happened. If I'd have said yes to that and no to this, then I would have been just caught trying to get a job that didn't happen. And I've done that so many times. Just think I got it. It's a simple decision. It's simple. It's not even that big of a deal. And then later on I look back and I'm like, what was I thinking? Surely I should have asked somebody. But yeah, seek the Lord and He will guide you. That's guaranteed.